they're called. There'll be fantasy, there'll be daring do and stuff like you would never see.
Be a movie. Yeah, we're gonna be a movie.
Starring everybody
And me. There'll be heroes bold, there'll be comedy, and a lot of fuss that ends for us real happily. Be a movie. We can watch it all develop. Starring everybody.
And me. We'll take the world and set it on its ear.
Come on, join in. We're gonna start right here.
And we are going to start right here. Good evening. You are listening to a Rad Religion Broadcasting premiere podcast triple feature. And tonight on the marquee from Hulu and 20th Century Studios, formerly 20th Century Fox, but you know, the mouse. Vacation Friends, starring John Cena. Da, 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 da. And from Amazon, formerly I believe Sony, that they bought for a bucket a quarter, Cinderella 2021. Starring, I think
Mark.
it's Indira Menzel.
Indeed.
Yep.
That
her.
Yeah, that chick.
Yeah.
Excuse me, lady.
Camilo Cabela and Indina Menzel and Minnie Driver. Oh, Minnie, we miss you.
Miss Minnie. I mean, okay, we'll get into
hang
that
on,
later.
hang on. Before we get into Minnie Driver, and finally, also from Amazon Prime, blinking you missed it. It's Jolt, starring everyone.
That's so freaking true.
Everyone's favorite ass kicker, wolf petter, and vampire murderer, Kate Beckinsale. All right, and joining me tonight, he is a miscreant and a misfit. He's a dungeon master. He'll take you into his dungeon. He'll show you his little things.
Sorry,
Ladies and
what?
gentlemen, it's Ronnie Adams. How do you do, sir?
I'm very, very well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. This is the first video we've done all week.
Really?
It was either pre-recorded stuff, old stuff, or we just went audio only for one reason or another. So you have the dubious honor, Ronnie Adams, of being the only person I've hosted on video this whole week.
I'm sorry to do you like that.
So Ronnie came to me a few months ago and was like, "Hey man, I'm starting to get the podcasting itch again. I'd like to be on more of your shows." And I said, "Great. I need people to do shit that Robert Winfrey won't do." And he went, "Oh, God damn it."
I didn't say that, but
and so here we are. I said, "Hey, I really want to talk about
here
this.
we are.
I really want to talk about this Cinderella movie that's coming out on Amazon because I think it's a real conversation piece. Also, John Cena is in a comedy on Hulu, and we should talk about that because like half of what we do on this network is wrestling, and then Kate Beckinsale's hot. So here we are, and that's how we landed on these three streaming movies. So we'll start with Vacation Friends. Before I pitched it to you, did you know what this was? Had you heard?
I didn't know
about
it existed before you did
Okay.
to me.
I comb the list of movies that are coming out and I kind of study them and I write notes down or whatever on the schedule. I don't know where the leather bound one that you got me was. I show it on camera. But right here, there it is.
Hey, you still got it.
Yeah, the
Big old
schedule.
leather-bound tome.
Yep.
The Tome of Horrors, as I call it.
So I write all the stuff down and I noticed that there's a 20th century film with John Cena in it and it's going straight to Hulu. And I'm like, that'd be kind of a fun thing to talk about. So you didn't know anything about it until I told you about it, right?
Not a thing.
All right. So let's get into it. We're going to start with Vacation Friends first. We're going to start easy, and then we're going to get to the meat of this thing. And Ronnie's going to have himself a time. He's got
I'm
things
going
to
to
tell
have
me.
a good old time.
And then
It's been a while since I pitched a fit on here.
Oh, good. An authentic Ronnie Adams fit.
Fit pitching.
All right. So Vacation Friends is a 2021 American buddy comedy film directed by Clay Tarver, who people might know from Silicon Valley, the show on HBO, with a screenplay by Tom Mullen. It stars Lil Rel Howery, who I believe was also in Free Guy, the aforementioned world heavyweight champion John Cena, who was an F9 this past year, And then Yvonne Orgy, Meredith Hagner, Robert Wisdom, formerly of The Wire, Lynn Whitfield, and Andrew Batchelor. And this came out August 27th when came with the Fox purchase by Disney, and they repackaged it and threw it onto Hulu.
That's roughly the time you asked me to do this. So
Yeah.
I watched it about then, and we'll see how much I remember.
All right. Well, there'll be a quiz at the end of this. So,
okay.
Marcus and Emily are on vacation to Mexico, where he intends to propose. His plans are ruined, I tell you.
Ruined.
When first their room is flooded, and then a hotel employee ruins the surprise. With no other choice, Marcus proposes to her on the spot in the lobby, and she accepts. Wild and carefree, Ron and Kyla, played by the aforementioned John Cena, and Meredith Hagner, watch their special moment, inviting them to stay with them for their trip. The four spend their vacation together, which includes Marcus and Emily eloping. Both black out due to excessive drinking like you do, but Marcus briefly regains consciousness during what appears to be Kyla having sex with him. The next day, Emily remembers nothing from the night before, and Marcus decides to keep what he recalls a secret. At the end of their vacation, Marcus and Emily decide to cut ties with Ron and Kyla like you would. Months later, Marcus and Emily have their official wedding, hosted by Emily's parents, Harold and Suzanne. Suzanne, you're all that I wanted from a girl. So they, especially Harold, don't approve of Marcus, partly because of an incident where Marcus punched Emily's brother Gabe. Harold, so good. Yeah, Harold entrusts Marcus with the rings for the wedding, which belonged to Emily's great-grandparents. Before the ceremony, Ron and Kyla show up. They discovered the location of the wedding online and deciding to come. Harold is initially furious at the intrusion, but eventually warms to them. Kyla reveals she is pregnant, and Marcus is directly involved in the pregnancy. Yeah, this is where the movie takes a turn for the really stupid.
Yeah.
Making him believe that he is the baby's father because nobody in this movie talks to each other.
Right.
The next day, Ron speaks to Harold, convincing him to give Marcus a second chance. A grateful Marcus selects Ron to be the best man, and Ron convinces Marcus to entrust him with the rings. The next day, the men go golfing with Gabe as his friend, and his friend, rather. To Marcus's chagrin, Ron suggests they bet on the game. Halfway through the round, Ron reveals that he bankrolled the wagers by pawning the wedding rings. On the final hole, Ron makes a massive bet that he can hit the 18th green in a single stroke. Despite Ron initially looking at the wrong green, forcing him to make a 375-yard shot to win the bet, he miraculously sinks a hole-in-one because he's John Cena.
Right.
Dun, 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 dun. Actually, he bribed a golf course employee to plant the ball in the hole. I think it would have been better if he had actually hit the home run. That'd be hole-in-one. That'd be great. After returning to the pawn shop to retrieve the rings, Ron actually, it would have been funny if he had sunk the putt and CM Punk was just sitting Indian style next to the hole. Anyway,
we're wrestling fans. Shut up.
Ron accidentally causes Marcus to drop the rings in a sewer grate. Marcus chokes Ron in anger, but John Cena has no neck, so it doesn't work. He reveals that he was told by a doctor that he was sterile and that Kayla got pregnant because of Marcus. At the rehearsal dinner, Kyla promises to make a speech where it seems she is going to announce that Marcus is the father of her child. He interrupts, sharing the full story in gory detail of what he believes happened in Mexico, only for Kyla to reveal they only intend to name the baby after Marcus, and he is not the father. You are not the father. Dun, 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 dun. Marcus tells an angry Harold the rings were lost, and a fight ensues outside the wedding hall. Marcus and Emily angrily demand that Ron and Kyla leave. Emily's grandma, Phyllis, delivers a wedding gift from Kyla. The letters inside reveals that Ron had lost his previous best friend, Charlie, and that his relationship with her and Marcus had helped him to recover. The gift is the wedding rings, which Ron retrieved from the sewer. Emily and Marcus realize they've made a mistake by sending Kyla and Ron away, so they eventually find them. The four reunite, and Ron and Kyla reveal they are finally planning to marry, holding the same ceremony in Mexico where Marcus and Emily tied the knot, along with their family and friends joining. Okay, Ronnie. This movie, I actually didn't mind the first half an hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Of it. This when they were actually in Mexico, first of all, this might be John Cena's best role ever. Normally he plays a really stiff jarhead. I liked him as the party meathead here.
Did you see him in Blockers?
I did not.
As the dad. He played a dad in that. And he was really good. When he's not, I hate to say this, but he really surprises me on how good of an actor he is. and it's not always just the military blockhead muscle guy.
Mhm.
I mean, like, but you look at him, you're like, how can that guy pull off a dad role? Because
Right.
honestly, he's chiseled from freaking stone. And I mean, like, how does that guy, love his heart? I mean, he's a nice looking fellow. I can't remember like off the top. Lil Rel,
Yep.
Howery, nice looking guy, funny guy. But how do you get the confidence to take off your shirt on a beach scene next to John Cena?
Well,
I shower with shirts on.
He's a comedian, and fat people are
Yeah.
funny. Here's the thing about John Cena. So, like I said, he's normally
Sorry.
like he was in a movie that my kids and I saw. I think it was called Playing with Fire. And again, he's like super serial military guy. Only he's a fireman. And when he was in Bumblebee, he was not only the villain, but he was also super serious military guy. F9, he's super serious military guy. So, like, what people don't realize Suicide Squad, right? He's super serious military guy.
He's so funny in that.
Right. Well, yeah. But like what I'm getting to is the thing that makes John Cena funny, and really the best part of Vacation Friends, is how over the top, like crazy and wild he is.
Yeah.
And like he gives half of his performance just screaming into the microphone, screaming into the camera. And it's hilarious because like when just watching wrestling for the last 20 years, of which John Cena was a huge part. Yeah, John Cena started to lean into the military stuff a little bit, but really what got him over was how witty he was, how quick, and how like when he would give a promo, especially like, when after he became world champion, he emoted so much. Like he lit up that ring. Like no matter who he was in the ring with.
Nobody in their right mind ever believed that he was a hip hop star.
Right.
Or anything of the sort. He even put out an album and it was awful. But he was so quick-witted and so funny with some of the stuff that he said. And and he knows how to, like you said, emote. He knows when to smile, when to frown, when to look like he's about to chew your face off, everything else. And it just changes so quick, so on a dime, man.
You don't see him as an actor doing a lot of like meathead bro dude roles.
No.
And that's totally what this is. He's granted, he's also a military guy in this one too, but he's a meathead bro dude at heart. And so the first half an hour to 45 minutes where he's doing drugs and he's screaming and riding jet skis and all that, that's hilarious. And that's when the movie is funny. Because like I said, it's a weird dynamic because you would think that like John Cena would be the type A control freak that Little Rel Howery is playing, and you would think that as the comedian, Little Rel Howery would be the funny guy, messing things up and knocking things over and look who's coming to dinner and all of that. But instead, you have Little Rel Howery who's having to play the straight man to John Cena's nut.
Oh, it's definitely a big role reversal in how we see things. I guess you could say that dynamic has changed since, especially in today's movies. I mean, back in the 80s, it would have been the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
For
sure.
Yeah, it would have been Arnold Schwarzenegger playing the straight guy, military, everything's. I mean, look at freaking Twins, even.
Right.
It's supposed to be a comedy. And he's the exercise nut that has everything lined up in control and
the comedy,
you got Danny DeVito.
Yeah, so none of the comedy comes from Schwarzenegger. It all comes from Danny DeVito.
Exactly. And with this, it's almost like the writer said, okay, let's take that, but flip it on its head. Let's make the big muscle-bound military guy the bro dude and, taking the drugs and doing all the stuff. And the one the comedian, the legit comedian, let's make him the straight character, the serious character.
Yeah, he has to take like neurosis and anxiety and whatnot and somehow like make it funny while also not being the comedian in the movie.
I like that guy too. I like Lil Ray. He's really funny.
Oh, did you see Free Guy?
I love Free Guy.
Okay, so look at him in that one. Like in that one, except for the one like heart to heart he has with Ryan Reynolds at the end of the movie, he's just making goofy lines.
He's the comedic sidekick,
right? One of the things I want to talk about really quick, because while some reviewers had very little to say about this or nothing at all, There's a particular person I'm aiming that at.
Gotcha.
But there are some things about this movie that legitimately need to be talked about, and one of those things is something that my wife actually brought up when we were watching it together.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, "You don't see one of the things you talk about, like role reversals here. One of the things I think the movie does to its benefit, actually, is that it points to and it kind of accentuates Black wealth. Like, there's been a Black wealth class in this country for a number of years now, but it's like, the list of CEOs out there, and people are amazed at how many of them are Black men and women and things like that. Like there has been a wealthy Black class in this country for any number of years, but it's not. But all we ever talk about are the underclass.
Right.
We talked about the people being like affected by everyday policing and things like that.
Well, and while that is an important issue, absolutely, that's all we've been fed to through media. I mean, if you're frozen, there you go. You froze with your drink to your mouth. I was like,
it's gonna happen every once in a while.
I was about to say, this is getting too serious. We gotta cut tape and run. But I mean, you look back at all the sitcoms and television shows and movies that we've been, through since the 80s on up to now. I mean, the only two wealthy Black families that I can remember being on TV were the Jeffersons, and they were always played for George was always played as a goof.
Yeah, the whole structure of the Jeffersons was to kind of turn racism on its head. Well, what if the Blacks were in charge, kind of a thing?
Right. And then you had the Cosbys.
Yeah.
The Cosbys were two doctors that were married.
One doctor and a lawyer.
Was she a lawyer? I thought she was a psychologist.
Felicia
she was a lawyer. Yeah, sorry.
And he was like a baby doctor.
He was. I remember him being a pediatrician. Or was he OBGYN? OBGYN.
Yep.
I can't remember.
You don't remember the one Cosby show where he was delivering babies all night? It was like the worst night. Like everyone.
Oh yeah, I remember, but I don't remember the names of doctors.
Okay. And so he had a dream that he was delivering sandwiches.
Yeah. That's a great show. It was a problematic person, but great show.
It's unfortunate he's a rapist, but moving on.
Moving on, but yeah, those are the only two, and the Jeffersons wasn't really even a good representation of Black wealth, in my opinion.
Well, no, there was also.
But I'm not a Black person, and I'm not wealthy. I forgot about Fresh Prince.
Yeah,
but even then, that wasn't the focus of it.
Right.
Where did Prince come from? Came from the hood, man.
Right.
He was bringing the hood to Bel Air.
The hood.
He was from Philly.
So yeah, it was interesting.
West Philadelphia.
It was interesting to see in Vacation Friends, like, you always typically in 999 out of 1,000 movies that deal with snooty families, it's white snooty families.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not Hispanic snooty families. It's not Asian snooty families. It's always white people. So I actually kind of liked that. First of all, there's an absence of a discussion of race in this. They just are wealthy and happen to be Black. But that's not what this movie is about in any way, shape, or form. Like, the fact that John Cena is white and he's friends with a Black guy isn't at all the issue. The issue is he's not classy, and he messes things up. And Kyla, is not classy, and
I
she
like
messes
that.
things up. And they're giving drugs to the grandmother, and and all of that. So the first half of this movie actually kind of works for me. It's the second half when we get to the wedding.
It got dumb.
Yeah, I think once we got out of like the night before the wedding, like reception, like everything I think up to the golf game, actually wasn't too bad. Once we got to the golf game is where the movie starts to deteriorate, and then so like the golf game itself, it starts to steadily creep over the top. When they go to get the rings is when it gets really stupid, and then the wedding itself. Like or the
it lost me. I mean, like,
I
remember getting up to do other things at that point.
It wasn't the wedding. It was actually the night before the wedding.
Yeah,
where Kyla and John Cena make the speech about having the baby, and then Little Real Harry is like, and we had sex. And it's like, well, that's not really what happened. We had sex on top of you, and Three's Company do.
Yeah. Only worse. I mean, like Three's Company was always awesome about their mistaken
Well, sure.
You know,
It's John Ritter would always
'cause-
mug for the camera.
Oh, I love John Ritter.
You know,
But man, nobody could shoot a camera time like he could.
no.
But it's just, you know, it just didn't work for me. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I don't like to get up and do things when I'm watching a movie, especially when I know I'm going to be talking to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
This point, I was like, oh, my dog needs more food. He already ate. What does he need more?
How do you
things
feel
like
about
that.
like cringe comedy? Like I know like in like the mid to late 90s, maybe the early 2000s, like whenever there was that renaissance of cringe comedies, like There's Something About Mary, you know, and Meet the Fockers and stuff like that, where it was half gross out humor, half cringe comedy.
Meet the Fockers wasn't so much gross out humor. It was more like cringe comedy in the fact that like you wanted to hide under a blanket the whole time that he was talking.
Like it was uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
And that was the feeling I got with this. Like watching them party in Mexico and kind of the comedy that comes out of trying to get little Rel Howery to, you know, let his hair down. I actually thought it was fun.
Yeah.
And you know, and the orgy at the, you know, that sort of sets off, you know, that ends the first act and goes into the second act.
Yeah.
Like I kind of wish that was like the end of the movie. I don't know how long the movie would have been.
Man, you're going like full sausage party on us, aren't you?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
No, I have not.
Seth Rogen's animated.
I've seen the pitch meeting for it, but that's about it.
Everything ends in an orgy in that.
Terrific. It's not that I needed it to end in an orgy. I just need the movie to end at that point.
Right.
Like everything that comes after it that has to now have to deal with the consequences of that orgy got exceedingly stupid the longer it went. So anyway, so like just to kind of close up the movie, the whole like the writers are insistent that the comedy is in the miscommunication between John Cena and Kyla and Little Rel Howery and his fiance, and it's like, but none of that stuff is funny. And I don't know who would find that stuff funny. Well, and it's really hard to watch.
It's almost like, you know, okay, so the king of the miscommunication was Three's Company.
Right.
But they did it less is more.
Yeah.
They relied on imagination. This took imagination completely out of it.
Right.
And it basically just lied to you. Okay, this happened. Oh, it really happened. Well, no, it didn't. In the end, oh, surprise, miscommunication. You know, kind of a deal. It didn't let you come to that conclusion on your own.
Here's the other thing: John Cena and Kyla are not bad people. Like
they're not.
Essentially, you're supposed to draw the conclusion that they're bad.
That they're horrible people.
That they do drugs. That's their. Yeah. They do drugs. They're loud, and they're kind of pushy about themselves and other people. They're a little needy.
Yeah.
But like from that, you as the audience, supposed to draw the conclusion, oh, how uncouth they are and what bad people they are. And Little Rel Howery's right to push them out of his life. And it's like, no, Little Rel Howery seems like a dick.
Yeah.
In this movie.
It did make him look bad in the end.
And then the thing of it is like, you know, like the golf game being a really good example is John Cena's like, oh, I'm not going to really take his car. I'm going to give it back to him. I just needed for you to not be treated like crap. And you're like, well, that's a really nice thing to do. Yeah, now I'm cheering for John Cena, and that's not what the movie's. You're not supposed to cheer for John Cena. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. It's like the more they wrote it, the more they're like, okay, and then we can do this, and then there could be a unicorn and a hot air balloon and all this other. Like, no, let's pull it back some.
And then the dam broke.
And then the dam broke, and there was a snake in my boot.
Yeah,
but. They should have kept the movie, in my opinion. They should have kept it contained in Mexico.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Would you watch a sequel?
No.
Good, because one's on the way.
Oh, good. That's awesome.
September 2021, 20th Century Studios announced that a sequel titled Honeymoon Friends is in development with the cast and director Clay Tarver set to return. Oh boy. Awesome. Can't wait.
If you come to me and say, Ronnie, I need somebody to watch this, I'll watch it for you.
Okay.
But that's about the only way I will.
So this did a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, did a 5.7 out of 10, I believe on Metacritic. No, something else.
Yeah.
And then 44 out of 100.
Yeah, IMDb's got it sitting at a 6.7.
Okay. All right.
6.3. It dropped.
So that's Vacation Friends. You know, if you have Hulu, you know, it comes with the cost of the subscription. I mean, there are dumber ways to spend your time. And John Cena is really funny, but overall, it was like, all right, it's out there in the world. I feel the need to talk about it, and now I feel the need to not talk about it anymore. Let's move on to Cinderella. All righty. Now, you did this one for me as a favor. I really wanted to talk about this. This was
I want my pound of flesh, Mark Radulich.
I'm going to give you easy, Jason. I'm going to give you your moment to have your therapy session here. But I got two things. I got first. Did you take notes? Do you have like a prepared script, or do you have notes that you're going to read from?
I did, but I got angry and tore them up.
Okay, when you wrote those notes, did you use Grammarly?
I didn't, and I should have, and because I couldn't have been able to tear it up. Wow. Also need it in my everyday life for speaking. I wouldn't have been able to tear it up, and I would have been prepared for tonight.
Well, Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly everywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free, and then you can be like Ronnie and write notes and then tear them up. All right. So the whole thing with Cinderella, this was supposed to be in theaters, I want to say around the same time as this was supposed to. Oh yeah, I remember this was supposed to be out in July.
Oh, good.
Around the same time as like Snake Eyes and Old.
Oh yeah,
somewhere in that area
where it should have been, where films go to die.
Yeah, they don't go to die in July. They go to die in September, except for when you're in pandemics. So this was originally set to be released strictly in theaters, and then, like I said, I think it was Sony who produced this. It was Sony Pictures, and I guess they did the math on it. They were like, forget it, let's just sell it to Amazon. Is spending stupid amounts of money. I think they're like overpaying for movies to try to beef up their Amazon Prime streaming service.
Do the math. Do you mean actually watch it?
Do the math is no one's going to see this in theaters. Let's take what we can get from a streamer and see if we can come out ahead.
Or did they go, hey, we haven't actually watched this yet. Let's just sell it to Amazon. We're not going to do good.
So here's the thing. I watched this with my wife and kids before we even get into the movie. And
I didn't.
The wrap on this movie before I even saw the first trailer for it was that it was supposed to be like a very like LGBTQ positive, like pro Cinderella take on Cinderella, but also kind of like my wife said after watching it, she's like, you need to watch Ella Enchanted. Ella Enchanted takes fantasy elements of yore and kind of gives them a modern twist. Yeah. And so it's this really weird amalgamation of modernity with a old time aesthetic. Okay,
it's not my jam, but Ella Enchanted is definitely better than this.
That's what my wife told me. And so we actually
testicle surgery is better than this.
I get it. So she made me watch Ella Enchanted because she was like, if you want to understand what they were going for with Cinderella, you need to watch Ella Enchanted. So I did. Anyway, point being, when I had heard the buzz on this, and knowing the kind of people that we know and knowing how certain people would react to it, I was like, I gotta watch this thing and I gotta talk about it. And so we did. My daughter loved it. My son was like, my son kind of had the same thing. It's like, if this is supposed to be old times, why are women starting businesses? They didn't have businesses in the time of castles and whatnot. And I'm like, my son's so smart. And my wife was playing with
your son so much.
What is this women's lib shit in the middle of this fantasy movie?
And I just want him to walk around with a little cigar and call people broad and toots.
Hey.
Get your tush in there, toots. Get me three fingers of milk.
All right. So Cinderella 2021 is a romantic musical film based on the fairy tale of the same name. It's directed by Kay Cannon, who you might know from the Pitch Perfect series. It stars singer Camila Cabello, Indina Menzel, Minnie Driver, Nicholas Galitzine, Billy Porter. Who is he? How is he described? It's like a gender neutral.
The fabulous godmother.
Yeah,
the non-binary version of the godmother.
Right. I remember seeing that was like the earliest thing I'd found out about this movie. And I'm like, oh, I have to talk about this. It is a jukebox musical featuring pop and rock hits. which I did not realize. I knew this was a musical. It had to be a musical. They have a singer as the lead. I didn't realize it was going to be like all covers of pop songs. So when they broke into things like Material Girl and Queen and shit like that, I was like, what am I watching here?
The only person that should be allowed to take modern music and mix it with a time, a time setting like that, it's got to be Baz Luhrmann. That's it. It's the only person that should be allowed to do it.
I can't wait for his Elvis picture next year, which is why we're going to be doing the Red Curtain trilogy, but we'll get there when we get there. All right. So Cinderella. Cinderella is an ambitious young woman who wants to establish her shop Dresses by Ella. One day in her patriarchal society, down with the patriarchy, down with pants, she catches the eye of Prince Robert in the guard-changing ceremony. The next day, Robert, dressed as a commoner, goes to the market where he finds Ella trying to sell her dress. After some playful banter, he buys it for 3 times the amount she originally asked. He later invites her to the ball being held 2 weeks later with the promise of introducing her to various people from the world to sell her dresses to. How romantic. When the day arrives, Ella is getting ready when her stepmother Vivian throws ink on her dress and tells her that only her stepsisters Malvolia and Nerissa can attend. Since Thomas, the vegetable merchant, has already confirmed his desire for Ella's hand, Ella is sad, but her fabulous godmother, played by Billy Porter, magically appears and dresses her in a design of Ella's with glass shoes and turns mice into footmen and a crate into a carriage. Ella goes to the ball and meets Tantiana, a visiting queen who offers to take her around the world as a dressmaker for her and asks to meet her the next day in the market square. Later, Robert finds Ella, shows his sister, Princess Gwen, wearing the gown he bought from Ella previously and proposes to Ella. Ella refuses. However, she wants to start her career. She tells that if she marries him, it will be the end of her dream. And Robert, from his small age, wanted to become the king, and he is also not ready to accept this. At the stroke of midnight, she leaves the hall after throwing her shoe at one of the king's attendants. Who throws his shoe, Ronnie Adams?
He throws his shoe.
The next day, Vivian tells Ella her life story, that she was also an ambitious girl like Ella and even had to got an opportunity to learn the piano in a reputed music school. She left home to study, and when she came back home, her husband gave her a divorce, saying she is not a suitable wife, and kicked her and her daughters out. When she was about to leave Ella's room, she finds Ella's glass slipper, and knowing the truth about that her stepdaughter is the mysterious princess, she tries to convince Ella to marry Robert. When Ella refuses, Vivian gives her to Thomas. When the king entered into the queen's room, and she does not take any notice of him, to which the queen replies that this is a family and love is important. The king says that he loves Robert, and she says that he loved him before he became a king, and that he is not paying any respect to her and not even accepting her words. Like Wonder Woman, she nags him into submission. She even tells, since he became king, he only thought of expanding his kingdom. Robert's mother, Queen Beatrice, helps his father, King Rowan, understand that it will be right to let him marry a commoner. The king thinks of these words and allows the prince to marry his love. Rowan even gives him the glass slipper. Robert keeps searching for Ella and finds her running in the forest after she escapes from Thomas. They confess their love to each other as Ella and Robert kiss and reach the market in time to show the benefactor her designs, who accepts them and asks Ella to travel with her. Robert introduces Ella to Rowan and Beatrice and informs them of their decision to backpack across Europe, to travel the world. He knows this will ruin his plans for future ascension to the throne, but Beatrice smiles as Rowan proudly declares that Gwen, his sister, will now be the first in line to the throne. Citizens of the kingdom gather to witness the ceremony announcing the princess's position and that Robert and Ella are in love. All right, Ronnie, you have been bugging me for a whole month to talk about this movie. So go ahead. Lay it on me, brother. All right. We seem to have lost Ronnie. So till he comes back, let me talk about what I thought of this. This was a mixed bag. I can see this as sort of like a feminist cause celebre, especially for little girls. I can absolutely see like little girls like my daughter who absolutely loved this. She thought this was fantastic. She liked the modern sensibilities of the feminist Cinderella. It spoke to her, but she's like 10. And I can absolutely see other little girls around my daughter's age enjoying the movie. I think that's the problem, though. Like, this is such a limited movie in terms of its scope and audience. Like, I can see now why Sony sold this, because when you've already got a depressed market, theater market like we do now, this does not have, even as a musical, this does not have wide appeal. And when you look at how the only other musical you can compare it to, In the Heights did over the summer, certain musicals have broad appeal and others have very niche appeal. So not every musical makes $1 billion as others have done in the past. So with that being said, I can see, not everyone's going to love sort of the feminist message of this thing. I mean, I thought it was fine. Doesn't appeal to me personally, but I can certainly see its appeal to a certain segment of the population. And like I said, you had 4 people watching this, and we all kind of had a different takeaway. So for me, I brought up before criticism that I had heard about this and about Vacation Friends. And
Marcus, I'm sorry, I had to step away
okay
for a second.
Nope, you're fine. The criticism of Cinderella that I kind of agree with was how the songs themselves don't really match the moment in which they're being sung. And like some cases, it feels like they're just singing the song because on a very surface level, the chorus of the song might reflect the mood of the moment.
But that got on my
go ahead.
nerves so bad.
Yeah, I didn't realize you had left, so I was pitching to you to kind of just go into your thing here. But yeah, go ahead and take over, starting with how the music doesn't really match the moment in a lot of places.
First of all, I had to apologize because I had a little issue on my end. I sent you a message. I was like, "You'll never get that."
Well, when I stopped reading the plot synopsis and saw that there was nobody on camera and I pitched to nobody, I was like, "Oh shit, let me vamp here."
So sorry. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, first thing that popped up in my head when they were introducing the whole world, I was like, okay, this is like a 17th, 18th, or not 18th, but like 18th century kind of thing going on here. And all of a sudden they broke out the angle grinders. And I was like, okay, well, there's electricity here. What's going on? So that bothered me. Just that's one of those simple things that bother me. I did not go into this, I promise. I'm not one to go into something, with my hate blinders on.
Sure.
I'm not like that. I don't see something say, oh, I'm going to hate that, and then go in knowing that I'm going to hate that. The only thing that I was ever really now, have I said I'm going to hate that by viewing the trailer and gone in with, try to drop everything about it just to watch it and come out saying, nope, that was just as bad as I was afraid it was going to be. Yes, absolutely. Fantastic Four remake was one of those that came out worse than I thought it was going to be.
That's so
this one came out worse than I thought it was going to be as well. Now, I found the music very in every aspect that it was trying to reach, it tried so hard that it failed on every aspect. The only thing, when I can look at a movie and say the only thing that I enjoyed was James Corden being a mouse, then I'm like, man, this movie was really not for me. Were they talented? Absolutely. Everybody in that cast seems like they're super talented. Minnie Driver, I'm glad to see she has work. I'm sorry it's this.
I'm going to actually disagree with you. I don't think what's this gal's name again? I don't think Camila Cabello was good in this. I think she sings just fine. She's a talented singer. Yeah, but like her line delivery, I didn't find believable at all, and it felt like if a lot of this feels like it was just first takes, like however she delivers it, that's what we'll go with. No one's here to listen to her talk anyway.
I absolutely agree with you on that. I was going to actually retroactively say I don't like how she delivered, how she acted, how the part. But I liked she can sing. Speaking of singing, Idina Menzel, sweetie, just because a part has singing in it doesn't mean you have to take it.
I haven't heard too much Idina Menzel, but like she does Material Girl in this, doesn't she? And that was yet another one where I don't think anyone in making this movie understood the point of Material Girl.
No.
By the way, my daughter's reaction to Material Girl is the funniest thing you'll ever see in your life.
What
So
is it?
I told this I told this story on the Metal Hammer of Doom, but for those who haven't listened to that, real quick, I took my kids to go to a concert. We saw a Clutch, and it was in a bar, and it was an all ages show, and there were other kids there too, but still a bar. And there's a guy standing in front of my daughter, and the back of his shirt is a pot leaf and a naked woman splayed out, and the shirt says, "Smoke pot, eat twat."
Oh wow!
And my daughter reads the shirt and
Out loud.
I don't know, but she got my wife's attention, and my wife got my attention, and I look over at my daughter is making the penny face from Big Bang Theory,
Right?
when she's watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, like, um. So she made the same face when in Indira, what the hell is this woman's name? Idina Menzel was singing Material Girl, because I had to explain that context is king, and that when Madonna wrote Material Girl, it was the 80s. It was the Reagan 80s.
Yeah.
It was a whole other time. And so I had to explain to her what the song meant and why, and why it was okay for that time. But where it's used here, she's like, if you think about the actual story of Cinderella, the whole thing with the stepmother, and this was a big part of the Lily James version from 2015, which we reviewed back then and then re-aired this past July.
Yeah.
And it's up in the archives. The big thing about the stepmom in the 2015 Cinderella was that she was brokenhearted by having married the man and taken in the daughter, and then the man dies.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the anger is projected onto Ella. But the other thing is that with the father gone, who was a merchant, they are running out of money fast, and this woman has to kind of figure out how to keep her daughters from falling into abject poverty.
Well, at one point she had them hanging laundry. Why are we doing Cinderella work? Well, I wanted you to see what you're going to have to live like if you don't find a man.
Yeah, and so the whole thing of it is like, to try to marry off your daughters in that time period to stave off abject poverty would not be a material thing. It's a survival thing.
Right.
So her singing Material Girl in that scene made no sense.
All of the points that they try to make in this are so heavy-handed and done so poorly that they are doing all of their, all of the agendas, quote unquote, they're trying to put to the forefront through this are just being hurt by this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got the LGBTQIA whatever, and I don't say that. I say that because I know I mess it up every time. But you've got the LGBTQ thing, which I found.
Just say Pride community.
The what?
Pride community.
Thank you. The Pride community. You've got that thing. Well, okay, you look at two different characters. You look at the fabulous godmother, and then you look at what was his name? The best friend of the prince, Wilbur, Will something.
Sure.
Non-binary actor, and you'd never know it,
Right.
But just took on the role of a male. Now, as far as the fairy or fabulous godmother, they made it to say non-binary. And you're like, why do you have to keep saying that when obviously you could have you're calling him fabulous, or they or them, and it's just it's a very over the top performance of I feel like maybe I'm wrong in that, but I was just like, man, you're hammering this home, and it's to me it's hurting your point in this. Feminism that has been explained to me in the past, because I'm not feminine and I'm not an ism guy at all. I live and let live, whatever, just get off my lawn. That's me, just stay off my lawn, I'm okay. But you're driving you're not driving home feminism. You're driving home emasculating men.
Yeah, that's a topic that comes up a lot throughout various podcasts and movie reviews that I've done. I know I've mentioned it a lot lately when talking about like the 3 westerns that we did for the last triple feature, Cry Macho and all that. and a couple of other cases where, like, the consensus is you can promote women and you can treat women as equals without demeaning men. That was like a big criticism of Black Widow. Was you had the two main male characters in the movie. One's a moron and insensitive, and the other one is Harvey Weinstein.
Right. Yep.
Like, but for why?
Right. Oh my God. Like this. So the main point, I mean, like one of the big points at the end was the Queen finally telling him to shut up or no or whatever she told him. And I'm like, okay, whoa, hold on. And then everybody applauds him. And not like, and okay, if this was an actual fantasy kingdom or a medieval kingdom, he would have backhanded her off the rail. You know,
didn't Henry VIII have like a dozen wives, many of which he killed? Because
if they didn't give him a male offspring, he beheaded them.
Right. Meanwhile, this one's like, you're right, Wonder Woman. I should be better.
You know, that's why I like the character of Dan Connors so much. He let his wife be a powerful woman, and exert her opinion, and be quote unquote the head of the household. But he really was. It was a shared thing with them, and he could be a man, and not be a threat to her feminism, to her life.
I am America's domestic goddess. Sorry.
You know, well, I mean, back then it was a really good show. Now she went a little off the rails.
It's still a great show. She's just not on it because she doesn't know when it is.
Oh, I know the new show. I can't handle.
Oh, really?
Like yeah,
political for you?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah, it was not. Even when like whether you swing left or right, I'm a more conservative person. Even when she was like all conservative at the beginning of the show, it's like, well, this is way too much politics for me. I don't care if I agree with the politics or not. If it's politics, it doesn't need to be on TV for me.
Yeah, the first season of The Revival, before she had mouthed off on Twitter and got herself fired, was like, I think they opened right up with like, you know, the Trump election or something.
Yeah,
like that.
The Trump election. She was for Trump. Jackie was against, and they hated each other.
Right.
And I was like, come on, seriously.
Yeah.
And then they killed her off.
That show always had what was it, like one of the first gay kisses on TV? Her and Sandra Bernhard.
Yeah.
Right, well, anyway, back to Cinderella. I see
Cinderella.
the point. I see the point that you're making. Like the movie,
you can have all that stuff without having the prince step down and give his sister control of the kingdom. He gave up his entire life and dream.
That didn't bother me.
So she can have hers.
Well, no, he didn't. But that's the thing is, he realized that wasn't his dream. That's why that's one of the few things that does work about.
He realized it wasn't his dream when he realized he wasn't going to get laid.
Well, some men are like that.
Sorry, it's just how I saw it.
I disagree respectfully.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that
you're allowed to be wrong.
I think that him being and that's my racket. I think him being like told that your destiny is to be king, and him sort of believing that because what else was there to believe until he was presented with an option for what could be if he would only let himself live out, let his heart make the decisions for him. And then realizing, oh, wait, I never wanted to be king in the first place. That's just what everyone told me I should be. And then he's like, but my sister, who's going to be better at this than I am and does want to be king or queen, is much better suited for that role. And that all worked for me.
That's fine.
Even with the stupid, like, modern prescriptions of the movie, like, that's one of the ones that worked for me. The stuff like Ella doesn't... Here's where I agree with you. Ella's whole thing is she doesn't want to find love. She's not interested in a boyfriend. She don't need no stinking man. She wants to sell dresses. Like, here's the thing. I'm not saying that every single girl's dream is to find a Prince Charming and be swept away and be taken care of. Certainly not.
Yeah.
But I don't know of too many who would outright reject having someone to love and love them in their life to the erasure of all else, to the exclusion of all else is what I should say. She's like, I'm willing to not let this guy love me, and I'm not going to love him because I would prefer to grow up and become a dressmaker.
She
come
actually
on.
admitted her love for him.
Right.
Yes, I do love you. But F all that noise because I got to go sell dresses because feminism.
And it's like, but you can do both. Like
Right.
my wife's big dream was to grow up and become a teacher. She did that. She's also married and has 2 kids. Like you can have it all.
Right. You can have your cake and eat it too.
What happened to women want it
Mario.
all? Like, did we forget that?
Right.
No. Oh, I'll tell you, we'll kind of end on this point, just move this along. But I will tell you one of the big issues people have with feminism, women that have with feminism, is that that feminists, by and large, cut off their nose to spite their face. There can only be one kind of feminism, and that is the woman must go out and work and earn a living and be successful and not have children and not have a husband. They are supposed to be power brokers. That is the only kind of feminism that's allowable. You can't demand equality and treatment with dignity and respect and be a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. And
my
it's like,
mother,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. My mother is a mom, of course, a wife, and she was a teacher until she retired. All these things she had. But you weren't going to tell her how to do something that she already knew how to do. Her favorite thing was the parallel park because she showed all these guys that were watching her that she could do it. When somebody, like, I was little, I think she was getting ready to parallel park, and this guy comes out of nowhere and says, "Honey, you want me to do that for you?" And she's like, "Back off. Right. I can do it." And first of all, it was back in the day, so it wasn't as creepy as it is now. And I think we knew him. And she parallel parked. That was her favorite thing to do, mainly because she wanted to show everybody that just because I'm a woman, that doesn't mean I can't do it. You know, there are certain things that she did just to prove that she could, because, and people stopped asking her, stopped thinking that, oh, because she's a woman, she can't do these things. To me, that spoke worlds more than anything in this movie. Okay, so it's the simple things that are like that. Also, she's very outspoken. She's Italian, so there you go.
My daughter says the same thing. She's like, I don't want to be married. I don't want to settle down. I want to travel the world and I want to be successful. And like, we want that for you too, Lily. But don't, you know, and we always encourage them, like, but don't, you know, if you find someone who loves you and you love them and they're willing to go on the adventure with you, don't begrudge yourself that just because, you know, one does not negate the other. And, you know, and being a stay-at-home mom does not mean you should be bereft of grace and dignity, you know, and well treatment by others. You know, like there was a period where my wife was a stay-at-home mom because she had just given birth and she wasn't working and she was home for a while. And she actually absolutely contemplated not going back to work. That didn't give me the right to then like treat her like a second-class citizen.
No,
and that's feminism. And that's the big problem. And that kind of goes. That goes back to the main issue I have with this movie is that this is one of those, there's only one kind of feminism movies.
And it goes back to white, what's the words? Cis white dudes. Talking about feminism. Yeah, I know, right? I hate that word.
Tag her in this. Hey, Bree, we broke the rules. We're sorry.
We broke the rules. We're allowed to talk about it. I don't care. But it's just one of those things where, like, a woman that stays at home is confident enough to say, I would rather stay at home with my children and take care of my house. And I don't give a frick what you say about it. Says exudes more confidence and strength than somebody who runs a Fortune 500 company.
So, like, you know, to go back to the Cinderella character, no one's saying that she shouldn't go be a dressmaker. Go travel the world and be a dressmaker. And I guess that is the movie's one saving grace, is that the prince kind of comes to the, you know, it says the movie does present them as they're going to travel the world together and they're not going to worry, you know, and that's part of why he gives up the throne. It's like, I'm going to go on this adventure with you. So in a way, the movie does kind of agree with what we're saying, but boy, is it a long, arduous, sort of windy road to get there, to the point where the message is almost lost.
The message was lost. Let's be honest.
In terms of representation, I get why they did what they did with the fairy godmother and Billy Porter. And Billy Porter did the best he could with that role in trying to make it fun and vibrant on screen.
Yeah.
It's a choice. I don't know if I would make it, but I'm not the one making this movie. This wasn't my vision. I don't really care.
I don't know. I just think Billy Porter is a talented person and can.
Mhm.
I could be wrong. I mean,
Mhm.
this could be they could have been Billy's, input in the whole role or whatever.
Mhm.
But I just think they did him wrong.
I don't know. I think, like I said, I think the more normalization of the various array of LGBTQ out there in film and television is probably a good thing. I why it had to be the fairy godmother is, again, I'd love to ask Kate Can, like, what are we doing with this role? Why did you feel this was necessary? But they did, and it's real, and it's my son had some questions. He was like, "Why is the dude in a dress?" I'm like, all right, listen. Um,
That's a very
there's
tasteful
a wonderful
slacks.
rainbow of people out there who do wonderful things. 7-year-old child.
First of all, it was more of a cape. Very tasteful slacks.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, like I said, the worst part of this movie was how they used the music and the song selection, and it kind of drove me nuts.
By far, it was awful.
Yeah, I can tolerate like the pro LGBTQ representation.
Whatever.
I can tolerate.
Keep it off my lawn.
I can tolerate the sort of only one kind of feminism message of the movie.
Keep everything off my lawn.
But if the music had worked for me, I'd be less unkind to the movie. But like when the music is the main thing and it sucks and your singer sucks in her acting, and everything is sort of muddled and stupid, and it also looks cheap. Did you get that?
It really did. It really did. It looked like an after-school special.
Yeah, like this thing had let me see what the budget was on this. This thing doesn't have a printed budget. I'd have to dig for it. So real quick, just to kind of close out this part of it, and then we'll move on. Despite the fact that us two cisgendered white males whose opinions don't matter watch this and have unkind things to say about it, according to Samba TV, the film was watched in 1.1 million U.S. households in its 4-day Labor Day weekend debut. According to analytics company Screen Engine, Cinderella was the most watched streaming movie over that weekend, as well as the most watched movie musical yet in 2021, more than In the Heights. So this was a win for them. Like, we could not like it all we want, but
my opinion doesn't mean jack when it comes down to that.
But I will tell you, I guarantee you there's going to be incentive now for Hollywood studios to produce more stuff like Cinderella, because this was a big win. And right now, if you're winning in streaming, you're winning in general. So that's that. Hey, one last thing, and then we really will move on here. I know you and I were not in love with the music of this, but for those people that were, you can find the soundtrack on Amazon.com, and we're actually giving away a free 30 days of the Amazon Music Unlimited streaming service. If you click the link in the description of this podcast, you'll get the free 30 days after filling out the information, and you can listen to Cinderella all you want. Have a grand time. You can listen to Indina Menzel sing Material Girl. You can listen to them sing Queen and God only knows what. I don't even remember anymore. To your heart's content. So that's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. Again, that's getamazonmusic.com/W2M network to get your free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music service. Okay, our last film, another one on Amazon Prime. This one I don't think was ever intended for the theaters. This one looks like it was wherever it was shown initially. It was bought almost directly and thrown into the pile of Amazon Studios. So this is Jolt, and this was directed by Tanya Wexler, who you might know from the 2011 feature film Hysteria. It stars, as I said before, Kate Beckinsale, Molly Cavanaugh from Vinyl, Laverne Cox from Orange is the New Black, Stanley Tucci from Everything, and Jai Courtney most recently in Suicide Squad. And it was released July 23rd by Amazon Studios. And there's no plot synopsis here, but here's what happens in the movie. A bouncer, Lindy Lewis, who's played by Kate Beckinsale, who has intermittent explosive disorder, which offends me greatly as a professional mental health person, goes on a date with a man named Justin, who's Jai Courtney. Upon learning of his murder the next morning, she goes on a hunt for the killer, while her vest used to suppress her symptoms becomes less and less effective. So she So Kate Beckinsale, she has this condition where she hulks out and hurts people. And she's had it like since she was a child. And they've tried various therapies with her, and she's been to various institutions or whatever. And finally, they find that electrical impulses will shock her into calming down, basically, and not hulking out. So she wears this vest with leads on it and she has a little button, a little trigger. And whenever she starts to hulk out, she hits the button, she gets the electric charge, and she, and the condition rights itself. Okay, so that's the movie, right? So that's like the whole setup. And apparently when she does hulk out, she literally has like superhero powers. She kicks all the ass. She can snap necks, with the greatest of ease. She's a killer. So she goes on this date, and the whole date is supposed to actually be a therapeutic exercise. She's supposed to feel like if she has a lot of antisocial personality issues going on, doesn't like people, she's quick to anger, that sort of thing. But her therapist, who's played by Stanley Tucci, and I think who helped design this electrical impulse vest, said, hey, go on this date and see how you do. See if you can tolerate the presence of another human being. And she ends up going on the date. She goes on a second date with him. He ends up sleeping with her. He seduces her. He gets her to take off the vest. And she wakes up and she's like, oh my God, this was the greatest day ever. I had a wonderful date. I didn't want to kill the guy. I didn't kill the guy. It was magic. So that's that. And then he turns up dead. And unfortunately. So even though the cops are involved, and the cops are played by Bobby Cavanaugh and Laverne Cox, they're like, hey, we're detectives and we'll solve this murder. Just give us information and go about your business. And she's like, no, not good enough. This was the love of my life after 24 hours of sex. So anyway, so she goes into the underworld and she starts looking for clues. And she's like Batman. She's like beating people for information. And one thing leads to another, and she eventually finds this old white mobster criminal type, and she kills all of his henchmen. And just before she's able to kill him, Jai Courtney reappears. And Jai Courtney's like, "It was me." Sorry, and Jai Courtney says,
"It was all me, James. It's always been me, the author of all your pain."
It never gets old.
It doesn't.
It was a setup all along. He was hip to her by Stanley Tucci, actually, because he needed somebody to infiltrate this mob and kill this guy. And I was so disinterested in the movie by this point, I forgot what the reason was.
Yeah.
But basically, he wanted this guy dead, and he figured if with the right motivation, he could get Kate Beckinsale to do it, and she basically succeeds.
Yeah.
And then they have a fight, and I think she ends up killing. Oh, she blows him up. That's what happens.
Blows him up.
So she blows him up, and you would think that would be the end of the movie, but no, she still has to go confront Stanley Tucci. And Stanley Tucci's like, but don't you understand?
I'm your father.
Wait,
what?
Might as well have said that.
Yeah.
Don't you understand? You are the living weapon, Iron Fist. You can do all kinds of amazing things, and this whole thing was to get you to control your Hulk powers so that you could become an Avenger. And so she kills him.
I like your version a lot better, by the way.
And so at the end of the movie, Susan Sarandon shows up, and she has a patch on. She's like, "I'd like to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative."
She's the worst Black Widow ever, by the way.
And so, no, in all seriousness, Susan Sarandon shows up, and she's like, "Hey, we have work to do," and that's in the movie.
And by that, she meant the script, and they just kept it in because it was a good line.
So, let me tell you how this movie reminded me of. So you and I are similar in age, as we've talked about before, give or take a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the mom and pop video store, like the early days?
Absolutely, yeah.
The early days of the VHS rental market. Right?
Yeah.
And how, in order to keep those places afloat, they needed to have more than just the hit movies on the shelves. They needed to have all kinds of garbage. Okay. So remember the garbage action flick?
Yep.
Like the nondescript, like it might have only aired in one market, or, and now and now they're selling videotapes. Like movies that were in very selected markets would have second lives as VHS tapes because they were everywhere to be rented.
I'm from West Virginia, so these little pop-up stores were everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a gas station or you said you might have a gas station, there was all of a sudden that was the seed that needed to be planted to get you to rent VHSs.
Yep.
So, I mean, I traveled so far into the country one time, I didn't know where I was, and there was a VHS rental place there.
Mm-hmm.
And a literal plywood shack. They rented VHS tapes. So there was a meme a while back that just showed movies and there was two labels on them that just said titties and fighting.
That's the name of my autobiography.
Titties and fighting.
Titties and fighting.
And that's it. And that's the movies you had. And when ours went out on the limb and started getting horror movies, and then kids section, whatever, there were movies I'd never heard of before.
Yep.
And still don't know where they came from.
Yep.
And some of them were the absolute best. This would have been in that section.
It totally would have. This is one of those like D-level junk action movies.
It's wonderful to kick on and forget about.
Yeah, this is definitely like I talk about this with Robert all the time about like the renaissance of the cheaply made movie.
Yeah.
Because streaming services now are an infinite
probably
video.
Makes him insane.
Sorry. It's the infinite shelf. You know what I mean? Video rental stores are now streaming services, whether it's Amazon Prime or Disney Plus or Shudder, and they need Netflix. They need to
cancel Shudder.
They need as much like content as possible, and there's more and more streaming services coming on board every day. I mean, look at what happened with Paramount recently. Paramount pulled almost all of its releases, and either whatever's left of this year, they either made them day and date on Paramount Plus, or they kicked them into next year. And
right.
I think they made an announcement that it was something along the lines of, we are going to focus on movies meant for our streaming service, like the next Paranormal Activity movie coming out next month.
Right.
So
which I think I don't like that, but I get it.
So Jolt absolutely feels like a movie that was always meant to be on a streaming service.
The words we're looking for are direct to video.
Yes.
This was a direct to video movie. And the sad thing about that, if you're all listening to us, watching us, whatever, and you don't know what that means, you are too young, go to bed.
Has Kate Beckinsale done anything besides the Underworld movies of note of any kind of value?
She is very attractive.
Yes.
I mean, that's about all I know.
So I'm looking at her filmography.
She did Vacancy. And I really like that. I appreciate that as a horror movie.
Oh my God, she was in Pearl Harbor.
Yes, she was.
She was in Serendipity. No, this is 20 years ago, though. So 20
Pearl
years ago,
Harbor
she had
20 years ago. Good God.
20 years ago, she had a halfway decent career. Let's just look at the last 10 years. Okay?
Click.
So 2012, she's in Contraband, Underworld Awakening, Total Recall, the remake.
Remake, yeah.
Republicans, Get in My Vagina. Sorry.
What?
It's a short film. Don't worry about it. The Trials of Kate McCall, Stonehurst. I don't know what these are.
Oh, it's a Funny or Die thing.
The Face of an Angel, Absolutely Anything, Love and Friendship, The Disappointments Room, Underworld Blood Wars, 2017, The Only Living Boy in New York, 2018, 2019, Untouchable, which is a documentary, actually, and now Jolt. And she has 2 movies coming out in the very near future, El Tonto and Prisoner's Daughter. So, like, she gets work, but she's not in anything of real note within the last 10 years that I can see.
Which is a shame because she's a fine actress.
Yeah, she actually sells this movie pretty well. I mean, like,
yeah,
all they need her to do is, read lines, kick guys in the face, and look sexy doing it. And she has to, and I think that the big thing is she has to sell the gimmick, which is this electrical impulse vest. The problem is, it's like, this is in that vein of like revenge movie, like John Wick, where you have one lone person cutting their way through the mob. And this is one iteration of that genre type, that subgenre, And it's not done particularly well or interesting. It's like almost
Peppermint.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but that kind of thing, yeah.
I liked Peppermint.
That was Jennifer Garner, wasn't it?
Yeah, I liked Peppermint. I'm a Jennifer Garner fan, but I liked it. It's not going to win.
Now that you said that, I'm going to make you defend. I'm going to make you defend Elektra. Ron's like, why do I come on this podcast?
I'll do it. It's not going to be good, but I'll do it.
I'll do it, but I won't like it. I don't have a whole lot else to say about this. This is definitely one of those where, like, if you have an hour and a half to kill, and you've got Amazon Prime, and you're like, I should watch more of the Amazon Prime exclusive stuff, or why do I even have this service? You would do worse than to watch Jolt, but it is a dumb, blah, plain, stupid, not really understanding how mental health works movie.
Direct-to-video action movie.
Schlock.
Think Dolph Lundgren in his prime.
Meet Kate Beckinsale, the female version of Dolph Lundgren.
I wouldn't put her that far, but I mean, Dolph does what he does. Dolph does what Dolph does well.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the man is actually not a bad actor, and he's a very intelligent human being.
I like him in the Expendables movies.
Expendables movies are amazing. And, the crap that they spewed about him in Expendables 2 having, they said he had a doctorate, but he doesn't. He has a master's in chemical engineering. He legitimately has a master's in chemical engineering and was a black belt champion in karate. The man, he's a worldly man. He's a man about town, but he makes poor decisions sometimes.
Are any of these guys that came from the worlds of like physical competition, weightlifting, etc., like superb actors? I mean, none of them really are. So it's the one varying degree to another, and many of them just got better with the more practice they got.
Yeah, and Dolph is okay. I mean, he's good. He is what he is.
Mm-hmm.
He does what he does well, but just some of the things he does, he doesn't make good decisions in them.
Well, sometimes it's not even his fault if you're given a bunch of scripts and it's all showing off your muscly muscles and not really getting any good parts. But
he was the first Punisher.
He was.
Yeah, he was the first Frank Castle, and it was not a bad movie.
Yeah, I've heard mixed. I've
not
heard
a good movie, but not a bad movie.
I've heard it's better than Masters of the Universe and Superman 4, and that's good enough for me.
All
right, anything else about Jolt? If not, we're going to close out.
No, I mean, you nailed it. You hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it was like I could have spent worse time watching something else, but it's not something I'm going to go turn on again real quick.
All right. So this week, we started off the week with releasing source material for Venom, Carnage Unleashed. And that was Jason Teasley and Jesse Starcher. We re-aired And Everyone Loves a Bad Guy with myself, Jason Teasley, and Robert Winfrey talking about Venom and Carnage and the rest of the Marvel symbiotes. Also, myself and Chris Bailey and Harry Broadhurst, we reviewed Extreme Rules 2021. Another Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, this time with Robert Winfrey and Pat Mullen. They looked back at The Sopranos, and that's coming out. We did that because of tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this, or today, The Many Saints of Newark is airing on day and date on HBO Max and in theaters. Myself, Robert Cooper, and Jesse Starcher reviewed the new Poppy album Flux, and for shits and giggles, we played my cousin's new hit single Ready, Aim, Fire. She goes by the name Mercy. So if you've got Spotify and you want to see what my cousin is doing, she is have Mercy or whatever it is on Twitter, and she's Mercy on Instagram, and she's Mercy on Spotify, where you can find Ready, Aim, Fire and Saho Bang Bang, which is another single that she does. I guess she's got an album coming out next year. So anyway, we played that on the Poppy review just for shits and giggles. Tomorrow, we're re-airing an old review that we did of Ministries from Beer to Eternity, and that's because Ministries is releasing a new album tomorrow. This weekend, we've got all James Bond content all the time. We've got a two-parter, Everyone Loves a Bad Guy, on James Bond villains. We are re-airing our Long Road to Ruin for the Daniel Craig James Bond, the first three. And then we'll be doing a Damn You Hollywood for The Many Saints of Newark. On the 5th of October, we'll be doing a Damn You Hollywood for Venom 2. And then because like everybody I've ever known in my life wanted to talk about Venom, we're doing an extra roundtable It's going to be hosted by Jesse Starcher, and it's going to feature one Ronnie Adams. And Robert Cooper will be doing double duty. He'll be on that and the Damn You Hollywood. And Pat Mullen.
When are we doing the round table again?
Wednesday.
I knew that. Why am I asking that?
And then Thursday the 7th, we're re-airing our review of Spectre, the 4th Daniel Craig James Bond movie. And then the weekend of the 8th and 9th and the 10th is the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder trilogy. We're going to re-air alternative commentary for the first one on Friday the 8th, the second one on Saturday the 9th, and then we'll have live alternative commentary for the trilogy on the 10th. We will also be re-airing our Long Road to Ruin discussion on Final Destination from a few years ago. So that'll be fun. And that's all the stuff I've got going on. Ronnie Adams, you're a misfit. You're a miscreant.
I have a show. I have a Twitch channel. It's kind of barren right now because I hit a wall with video games, and I haven't streamed any video games lately, and I need to. I'm getting back on that, but Misfits and Miscreants, spelled just how it said, I guess you could say. That is the Twitch channel where I stream a bi-weekly actual play Dungeons and Dragons stream. It is really awesome. We had our first one, which was called Trouble in Winterhold, but now we're on a completely different story where I am the DM. We have a few new, I guess you say, cast members. We have a few new players. We are moving up to 7 PCs now, player characters, and we will be on session 3 this Saturday, October the 2nd, at 6 p.m. It's a lot of fun. D&D to me has been really helpful lately, as far as getting out of the house and mental health and keeping everything up in the old dome straight. That's why I like it. But D&D is, if you've never played it, it's a lot of fun. Role-playing games are amazing. And that's what I want to bring the content of. Well, role-playing games, some board games, some video games, things like that. We've got, I'm going to get some permissions, but we've got free RPG day coming up, October it's the 2nd, and then the 16th. October the 16th is free RPG day. I'm going to be hosting a couple of different games. One called Call of Cthulhu, and based on the Cthulhu mythos by Lovecraft. And then I will be playing another game called Monster of the Week, based on the actual Monster of the Week shows, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, X-Files, all these other, Supernatural, all these other Monster of the Week shows. And we'll see if I can get any of that time streamed to show off these different games. A lot of fun. I want y'all, if you see us streaming, please come out and hang out with us. We try to interact with you as much as we can in the chat. We do giveaways, things like that. We've given away dice. We've given away dice mats. We've given away miniatures, things like that you use for D&D. We do a lot of things. We try to interact with everybody. I'm opening a Patreon soon, so we'll have some exclusive content on there as well. So come hang out, give us a follow, and see what we're about.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us here on Triple Feature. I don't know when we're doing another one of these again. We have a lot of Damn You Hollywoods coming. Oh, I know when we're doing another one. Alexis Hannah and I will be doing one at the end of October for Straight Out of Nowhere, Scooby-Doo meets Courage, Muppets Haunted Mansion, and My Little Pony: The Next Generation. So that'll be the next triple feature that we do. In the meantime, for Ronnie Adams, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.